What's going on, fam? Welcome to the Boot Report. In today's episode, we have a lot to go through, including what are some of the best wide-footed football boots, and will I review fake football boots at some point? We are going to start off with the weekly news. Now, Adidas has come out with a Copa 11 Pure, so to speak, which is basically an homage to the absolutely beautiful Champions League colorway of the white and almost this color blue of the 11 Pro. Now, they've put basically the same paint job on top of the Copa Pure 3, which looks excellent and has the same tech as the regular Copa Pure 3, which is an awesome football boot. It's got a really nice leather forefoot, synthetic midfoot, a new and updated balance frame or whatever they're calling it. And it really does a good job of being basically what the Tiempo Legend 9 Elite kind of was. Although the Tiempo Legend 9 Elite, of course, was an all leather upper. Now, the other thing that happened this week was IDA or IDA unveiled a limited rise icon boot to celebrate Women's History Month. For those of you who don't know, IDA is a women's only football boot brand, and they have price points from about $250 for their top end all the way down to under $100 for some of their youth style shoes as well. So that's super cool. Unveiling the special edition colorway for Women's History Month. Some of the latest colorway drops that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, shall we say. First was Nike's Chromatic Pack, which actually released today as of the filming of this video. The Tiempo is white with red. The Vapor and Superfly are a white base with basically purple and blue ombre into the sole plate. And then the GX2 and Luna 2 are white with green, like an emerald green colorway. In my opinion, the Tiempo is by far the best looking of those. I'll pop some photos up on screen. They're absolutely beautiful. And it is just a shame that the Tiempo absolutely fucking sucks as a football boot. So that's disappointing for me because I would absolutely love to wear the Tiempo Legend 10 if it was actually leather / if it was anything to be interested in other than the colorway, right? But I'm curious to know, what do you guys think of the Nike Chromatic Pack? The Mizuno Platinum Silver also released. I actually got 2 pairs of the DNA, so I actually picked up a second pair. We'll talk about the DNA in just a minute as well. Those are a fabulous pair of boots, and the DNA 2 launched in kind of along with the Morelia Neo 4 and Neo 4 Beta. The non-beta version is only available in Japan, I believe. And then, of course, the Alpha 2. We won't get, I don't think, a regular Morelia 2, so that's a little bit disappointing, but you do get a better, objectively better football boot in the DNA in that Platinum Silver colorway as well. The whole pack looks incredible in my opinion, although it is a little bit polarizing, I know, for some people, because and for that reason, I don't think that it will perform necessarily as well in resale markets, which we'll get into in the market report as well. And then another one that's not really a release, but it is something of note, is that Nike a couple weeks ago announced that they are canceling the Premier 4. So they had lined up, I believe, the same colorway as these Tiempos. So the Ronaldinho Tiempos, and then the Tiempo, that's a Tiempo Legend 5, and then the Tiempo Legend 6, which they did in that beautiful maroon Pirlo colorway. They were going to do some of those similar to the Premier 3, which they had released in several different colorways. Those are all going to be canceled, unfortunately. And I think part of it has to do with the way that leather football boots are hard to create now. Essentially, what this means is that Nike doesn't want to spend the money to develop any sort of faux leather football boot, or excuse me, any sort of leather football boot, period. They're not even willing to use basically to use a non-K leather football boot. And that's really disappointing, to be honest. I wish they would use something that was even like Adidas is doing with the Copa Pure and the Icon 2, which are both really, really good football boots. And I think that they would do a much better job in the market if they were to actually produce those types of boots, particularly with the current Adidas market just absolutely blowing up because Adidas is crushing it. And now they're on par with Mizuno and stuff and they're competing with the best Japanese leather brands as well. So Premier 4 canceled, unfortunately. Such a bummer. In terms of boot leak releases, so we got a really good look on footy headlines of the Phantom 360 leak. And basically what it looks like is the shape seems to not have changed all that much from potentially a little higher volume than the Phantom GX2 and the Luna 2. That being said, the grip knit looks like it's only on the medial side. So this is, forgive me, this is a pair of Ultras right here. But basically on the inside, that is where the grip knit is on at least the photos. And then on the lateral side is pretty much exposed Atom knit, or grip knit, or excuse me, Atom knit or fly knit. My guess is they're going to use Atom knit because they saw the success with the Vapor 16 and they said, why wouldn't we create something just like that because of how popular the Vapor 16 is? And I'm sure Vapor 16 will also be updated in the next, 6 to 12 months, basically, for Vapor 17 and Superfly 11. So for me, the leak looks kind of cool. My only disappointment was that the sole plate looks like the Cyclone 360 sole plate, just slightly different. And that's one of those things that to me, that's really disappointing because I think the Cyclone 360 plate is a disgrace to the Phantom line. I think the Phantom has always either been conical stud, like, yes, they've had bladed studs a little bit, but it's mostly been either a combination of chevron and conical or just chevron. And it's been a lot more, less bladed, less archaic looking. And the forefoot of that Cyclone 360 plate just looks absolutely horrendous in my opinion. And so that's a little bit disappointing. The other one we got good photos of is the Mercurial Pro Air Max 95. Now this will probably be more of a lifestyle boot, if that makes sense. Maybe not quite as performance oriented as the Air Max 90. What were they? Air Max. I have the purple and the orange ones, but those are a lot more performance oriented, whereas this one Mbappe will probably wear at some point, but it actually looks like it has a couple layers of extra material on top of the knit base. And so to create that sort of Air Max 95 texturing, which I don't really love in my opinion. I don't really like the look of it. I think certain sneaker collabs can work. I think the Bad Bunnies work really well because they look a lot like the Gazelles or the Sambas. I do like the two Air Max boots that I have, both the orange and the sunset and the whatever the purple one was called. And so both of those are super cool in my opinion, but again, they lack some of the performance characteristics of the normal football boot because of the added cage basically on the outside of it, which is, it is what it is. So that one we saw. And then we also got pretty much confirmation that the Hypervenom 1 will be re-releasing at some point, most likely in the original colorway of black and orange. We just need to see whether there's going to be something slightly different about it. I would guess it would be surprising to me if they released Hypervenom 1, like those ones right there. If they released Hypervenom 1 in the original color with all of the original materials, my guess is they'll do something different. So they'll put either flywire cables in and do the upper from the Hypervenom 2.5 or whatever it was with the flywire and the Nike skin, or they'll put a different sole plate on it, or they'll do something a little bit different. I would highly doubt that given the performance of the CTR remake, which I actually haven't seen a lot of on the resale market. And when I do see them, they don't go for very much money over retail. So that kind of tells you, okay, maybe there's not a market for it, or maybe they're picking the wrong boots. What do you know? Which to me says that Nike is not doing a great job at picking the boots that consumers actually want again, whereas Adidas is going hard on the Predator remakes, which, oh, by the way, everyone wants, right? So for me, Adidas is absolutely killing the remake game. I really wish Puma would do something cool. I really wish, like, if they made a Evo Power 1.2 again, or did something like an Evo Power but slightly updated, that would be unbelievable. Like, I think the future needs to die and the Evo Power needs to come back. I think that would be absolutely incredible in my opinion. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Hypervenom 1, but I will hopefully get a pair and we'll definitely be doing a review at some point, whether it's a boot that I actually own or I'll grab somebody who I know's pair and go from there basically. So now boot talk. So talking about boots. So one of the two things that I want to mention are boot talk basically are the two videos that I released this week outside of the podcast. Now the first one that I released was the Under Armour Shadow play test. So the new Shadow 3. And a couple notes on that one. First of all, go watch that video. But second of all, a short synopsis of the Shadow. So for me, the Shadow does a wonderful job at being a more comfortable, wider fit, more, I think, widely accepted version of the Shadow 2, which by itself was a really good football boot, in my opinion. It just had a little bit of an awkward shape because of how structured that midfoot was with the exo mesh material. And so what they've done is they've basically totally redone the Intellinet upper. It's got a completely different weave now. It's very similar to Flyknit Ultra, but not as, it doesn't feel as thin. It feels actually more similar to Phantom Ultra, even though it has the kind of the shape and the sizing of the Flyknit Ultra. And that's a good thing. The only downside to that one for me is that it's not my favorite in terms of shooting and bending the ball because it doesn't have as much feel to the upper in between your foot and the ball. So that's one thing that I don't really necessarily love about it. That being said, every other thing that you do with that ball or with that boot, passing, long balls, first touch, volleys, like all of that stuff, incredible. I think that boot is criminally underrated, and I'm really hopeful that more people can go in and get a pair because they are absolutely awesome and so comfortable for wide feet. That's one thing that I absolutely love about the new Shadow 3 is that you can basically jump into it whether you're super wide-footed or not. The only downside is that they've created a pretty wide upper, but the sole plate is still pretty narrow, and so there's quite a bit of foot spillover. Now, if you don't mind that, great. If you do, that's one thing to keep in mind. If you do have wide feet, is like my feet probably spill over a good couple centimeters on either side of the sole plate, especially in the midfoot, because the midfoot's only about that big or that wide, if you will. So something to consider, but Under Armour Shadow playtest is up. It's a great football boot, don't get me wrong. There's just a few things that I would probably say need to be fixed about it, which I go over obviously in the video. The second video that dropped this week on Thursday, USA time, was the Blackout Soquito Scudetta, which I had actually put a pair of laces about this color in, which I think look absolutely excellent. The reason I did this extra review is because I wanted to go up half a size for the break-in process and the 1 month review. I did do a play test in the original 9 US, the white with those red laces that I put in there. And those were fine, but they were a little too tight for my liking. I'm sort of at a point now in my footballing career where I'm not playing professionally anymore and I don't need boots to be excessively tight. So most of the time I'm still going to go with my normal 9 US, but on occasion, especially for boots like the Scudetta and like the Puma Ultra, or sorry, not the Puma Ultra, the Puma King 2.0, and there's a couple other boots that I'll go up half a size in just because it's a little bit of extra space in the toe box area. And usually it's actually the correct length of size that fits super tight, but it's not making my toes do this, right? Ideally you get in and yeah, maybe it's a little bit low volume like the Scudetta is, but my feet aren't doing this also. Like you don't see the knuckles of my toes on there as well. So that's something to keep in mind. But that is a fabulous football boot. I think they've absolutely nailed it. The only thing that I would do to that football boot is make the sole plate more responsive, and I would make the stud pattern a little bit less aggressive, or make an AG specific. I'm always a fan of a more, I mean, look, even this one, right? The Messi F50, even the Messi F50 sole plate is excellent because it goes kind of on AG or FG surfaces, totally fine. In fact, the AG model of this is basically the same. It's not really any different. So that's something that I think the Scudetta could do a little bit better. Yes, I know they're trying to compete with some of the other really aggressive boots on the market, like the Vapor and the Ultra. That being said, I do think it's going to be a lot better for overall use. And I honestly think the boot would be more popular if they went hardcore into, well, our boot already feels like 2014 F50. Why not do a sole plate that's kind of like that? They're going to be releasing an AG model at some point soon, but that's just something to keep in mind as you kind of go along your purchasing journey and what boots you want. Keep in mind the Scudetta because I absolutely love it. It was third on my list. Debatably, it could have been second to the Rotero / the David Beckham. It was either of those two and the Scudetta were kind of tied for second in my opinion. That rounded out the top three with, of course, the Wave Cup SS Japan, which is god tier. I mean, it's one of the greatest football boots ever created, in my opinion. So those were the two videos. That's boot talk. Next, we're going to get into the market report. So a couple different things we'll go over is resale market trends that I've been watching. Obviously, as you guys know, I'm very connected to the Instagram resale market and then the notable boots that are surfacing, maybe some really unique pairs that I've seen come up, which is super fun for me. And then kind of current stock and what's going on in terms of being involved with Ultra and soccer.com and kind of keeping tabs on where boots are and how much they're selling and all that stuff as well. So in terms of resale markets, dealers seem to be getting a hold of that new, like the OG CR7 Vapor 1 remake, the one that's identical to that silver colorway. I actually have the silver colorway right above me. I still need to give it to my mate who I haven't seen in a couple weeks since going back to the US. Needless to say, that boot got such a poor reputation in the silver colorway that I think that new color came out. And I've seen dealers with full size runs and they're trying to sell them at or above retail, which in my opinion is just freaking ridiculous because that pair of football boots is dog shit. And in my opinion, it's one of those things that you just, man, Nike, like you didn't hit the mark on that one. Like, sorry, you didn't. Creating a one-to-one would have been so much more nostalgic and so much better. I honestly think it would have done better even if they had done what Adidas did with those Zidane boots and gone only for an SG model. Just like the old Vapors were, right? So for me, it's a little bit of a lackluster kind of vibe. And so that was an interesting thing in terms of trends, given where there's not a lot of demand for them. Like I was seeing, I think that boot retailed for $350 Australian dollars. And again, if you're watching this and you're from the US or Europe, do the conversion online. Stop saying that Australia is too expensive because it's about on par with most other places in the world for the most part, right? So $350 about retail. They were like just under $300 US. And I saw some people putting them up for like $450 or $400 US. And it's just like, oh, good luck. And if you pay that, if you're watching this podcast and you're considering a pair of those, I wouldn't even pay retail for a pair of those. Like if somebody offered them to me, let's say they retail for $275 or $280, I probably wouldn't pay over $220 for those. And even then I'd be like, yeah, but I could buy something way better and more exciting than that on the resale market, right? There are way more retro boots that are worth $220 that are way more exciting to me. Like I could get a pair of X's for that much. I could get a pair of Vapor 14s or 13s even. Vapor 13s sell for quite a bit. But I could get a lot of other boots for that amount of money. Old Tiempos, for instance, I could find for $220. So that's where it just gets a little funny and a little frustrating. Dealers seem to not be paying much attention to how they've first been received. They get all excited about, and I'm not hating on dealers. Look, I do deals with dealers all the time on Instagram. And also sometimes they're a little out of touch, which is hilarious to me. The other boot that I've been seeing actually quite a bit pop up for under retail is Vapor 16 and Superfly 10 in some of the more undesirable colorways. And to be honest, there's kind of two ways to think about this. The first is that I do think that the way that a lot of modern boots are getting to go under retail is, number one, you've got people with connections in the factory. That's like an obvious one. But also, because of how many colorways are coming out, it means that the demand for the less desirable colorways is actually a lot lower. And so you can get into a pair of elite Vapor 16s or elite Superfly 10s for like $170, which is nuts because that's almost $100 off. That's basically two-thirds of the cost, or 33% off or 35% off. And so if you're in the market for a Vapor and you want something that's, you want a top end boot, but you have budget friendly money, you're considering something like a Icon 2 or something else of that nature, a 442 Elite or something like that, right around the $150 to $170 price point, or even the Mizuno Elite models, I'd be like, dude, go look at a Vapor 16 on the resale market for like $160. Okay, sure, maybe it's not one of the super dope colorways. It's not like a Cosmic Speed or something, but you can get into that, like the light blue. I actually did a review on the Superflies. The light blue with the kind of royal blue or dark blue swoosh. Those are a super sick color. Like, they look great in my opinion. They're very simple, but they'll perform and they'll fit so well. So that is one of those boots that I would keep an eye out for, because I've seen a bunch of those pop up, not just in that blue colorway, but in a couple other ones. And under $200 for a current generation top end Vapor tells me that Nike has done a really poor job at releasing way too many of those, which is a bummer, but also really great for us as consumers because we can find those boots for super, super cheap. The three notable boots that I saw on the resale market, and if you are interested in a spot on the podcast or being tagged in the podcast, let me know. Boot dealers on Instagram, if you're watching this, do let me know, because I would love to start doing some shout outs, but that costs money for me and for you. So Magista Obra 1, Black History Month, saw a pair of those in a 9.5 US pop up. The Tiempo Legend 3 Elite World Cup colorway, that was one of my first super, super top end football boots. I have a pair of the maroon ones in the wall down below here. Absolutely beautiful. I think those were in a 9.5 as well. And then the silver and orange CR7 Vapor 11s, an unbelievable pair of football boots that Matt Sheldon actually wore them like a year or two ago, I think for Detroit, maybe. He's worn a bunch of different colorways, I realize, but that one in particular, he had one or two pairs of that a buddy of mine, Haltz, sourced for him, or sourced like a couple different pairs for him. So a pair of those actually popped up in my size, and I'm very tempted to buy them, but they're like $400 and something, and I just, I want a pair of Vapor 11s, but I don't want to pay that much. So that's just me. And then as far as current stock and what's going, what's leaving, market trends in terms of what's currently available, the big one for me was the DNA, which was actually a little surprising, but also, given the colorway, not so surprising, and I'll explain why. The DNA sold really well right away. A lot of people bought pairs, but it wasn't as fast as some of the Predator FTs. And I know companies like Unisport, ProtoX, Soccer.com, Ultra, they have to basically project what they think people are going to buy. And they pre-order, essentially, let's say 500 pairs of one model, and then it's a bell curve of sizes, right? So you order really few pairs of the super small and the super large. And then obviously as it gets closer to the average, like the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s, those are, and the in-between sizes, those are the ones that they have the most stock of. And so with the DNA, so I got a pair with doing the video review for Ultra, right? So that's just part of the contract, right? So I get the boots that I play in, but I actually went back a couple days later and bought a second pair because I was like, I want this pair to sit on ice. And I did the same thing with the Wave Cups as well. In fact, I don't know where they are. Oh, they're over here. Both of them are right here, out of camera, and they are both such incredible football boots. And from the DNA's perspective, I think there's one is the really dark obsidian blue with the white, and the white with the silver. Those are the two colorways that were the original ones, DNA 1, if you will. were a lot more subtle and they were much more kind of Mizuno-ish. Although Mizuno has come out with silver colorways before, and to be fair, they've been relatively popular in my opinion, and the market has seemed to reward Mizuno for those particular colorways. But this new one with the silver and the gold, I think was a little polarizing, and I don't think there's a lot of people who just say, "Oh yeah, cool, like it's a colorway, but it's whatever. Like I don't like it or dislike it." It was either you loved it like me because I'm obsessed with that color, or you're like, absolutely not. It's just I was talking to a buddy of mine in Ultra actually, and I was like, dude, you need to get a pair. Like they're so rare. You could always resell them, blah blah blah. And he was like, yeah, but the color, dude, like the color. And I had to disagree with him. And I basically was just like, you don't understand what you're missing, dog, because these are going to be super expensive on the resale market. Like you can't get the silver. I just redid the wall, so I'm actually not sure where these are. Damn. They must be behind something down here. Anyway, okay. Regardless, those white and silver ones are brand new. If you even can find them brand new in box, they're like, I want to say they're $600 to $700 US, which is almost a grand. And honestly, deservingly so. Because they are, I would say they're up there. They're probably top 5 greatest boots ever created. Genuinely. They're incredible football boots. And so, yeah, despite DNA selling well, they're still kind of stock in certain places. So hop on if you haven't already, because they're awesome. The other boot that seems to have cooled off a little bit is Predator FT. I think with how many colorways that Adidas is rolling out, I think the Predator FT in particular has sort of gone over its hype curve. Like we're kind of on the other end of people absolutely losing their shit about a fold over tongue Predator. And that's good and bad. I think Adidas did a pretty poor job because they released 900 colorways last year and the hype of them just kind of didn't go as well as they probably wanted to. That being said, it means that there's a lot more availability. And similar to what I said earlier about the Vapor 16 Superfly 10 situation, with being more colorways equals less demand, and or the demand has stayed the same, but the supply has now superseded the demand. And so you now have this extra gap where there's going to be a lot of boots on sale, like FTs for sale, basically. And I'd imagine that the colorways like the iconic black, red, and white ones that they just released, sure, those will sell out. But the normal run-of-the-mill colors, like they just released, what was the pack called? Mystic Victory pack with that absolutely disgusting. I mean, the whole pack was just hideous. But they were Volt yellow with blue and pink accents. The F50 was like a nutso pink and Volt, and then the Copa was actually not that bad, but it was still was black that ombreed into that Volt yellow, and it was like that. What was the Predator 24 Elite that they released that was definitely supposed to be a Pogba boot? But you get what I'm saying. They're absolutely disgusting. Like you're going to be able to find those boots. I think you're going to be able to find those boots on the resale market slash at Ultra or Unisport or whatever for literally $13.75. Like they're gonna dive so hard. And yeah, I think I'm just excited for the day when you can pick up a pair of full-on Predators in the most hideous colorway. And what I think you should do is I think you should contact a custom painter, buy one of those hideous top-end boots for literally 5 cents 50, and then or $5.50, and go and pay $200 for a custom paint job. Like that would be pretty cool in my opinion. So anyway, I digress. But Predators are, I think, finally starting to come down from the hype. And despite certain colorways being really exciting and really fun, I don't think they carry the same amount of absolute lunacy that they used to. And that it's fair enough, right? I think you know, Adidas and Nike have sort of oversaturated the market with too much supply, and it's just getting absolutely ridiculous. Like the amount of, I don't even care about new colorways anymore. Like when that new black, white, and red one, the kind of classic, not the all black with the tiny red accent, but the most recent one. What did they call it? The Predator Moments boot. That Moments pack colorway that is absolutely stunning. I didn't give a fuck about that boot. And you know why? It's just colorway burnout, dude. I don't understand why they did not. It just another color. It's like we've already had 7 colorways of the new Predator already, and it's just ridiculous. So anyway, I digress. The next thing I want to talk about is questions. So you can ask your questions either to my Instagram and just tell me, hey, this is for the next podcast, and I will put something together. I'm working on a landing page situation where you can just, it'll be like noahcavanaugh.com/questions, and you can go in and submit your questions, and I will go through and pick the top 5 questions for the week. Question number 1 is Copa Pure 3 versus Tiempo Legend 9 Elite. This is a great question. To be perfectly honest with you, the Copa actually fits me a little bit better because the Tiempo 9 started to get a little more narrow than the 8 was, and the 8 kind of barely fit me with the quad fit system. The 7 was amazing. The 6 was okay. It was a little bit wonky shaped. The 5 was my favorite. The 4, I would say 4 and 5 were like my favorite Tiempo. That being said, Tiempo Legend 9 Elite was sort of pinnacle of technology meets performance meets leather quality. The only one, I think the only 2 boots you could make an argument are more kind of advanced than that one. And you could argue that the 9 was potentially more of a modern football boot, given how lightweight it was, were the Tiempo Legend 4 Elite. So the carbon plate, beautiful K leather, and then flywire cables. And then the Tiempo Legend 5 Premium, which obviously was hyper limited edition, came in the Totti black colorway and the Ronaldinho white colorway. And I have both pairs. And those were obviously mega limited. Between the 2 of them, only 6,000 pairs in the world. And so I would say regular Tiempo 5 was as comfortable as Tiempo 9, but Tiempo 9 was arguably more high tech, right? It had the knit in the lacing system area. It was a much lighter boot than the Tiempo 5, et cetera, et cetera. So Tiempo Legend 9 and the Copa Pure 3 are both incredibly fun football boots to wear. They're very simple. There's not a lot of BS going on. There's more padding in Tiempo Legend 9 because remember it did have, hold on, one of the best colorways, by the way, of the Tiempo Legend 9. So it did have this like pass pad here in the medial side of the midfoot, and then it also had kind of this forefoot padding as well, which, hold on, I actually have the Copa Pure 3 here as well. And the Copa Pure 3 with the fusion skin is a little bit thinner in out of the box feel. These have been these are a little dirty because I wore them the other day, but they're noticeably, I think, a little thinner than the Tiempo Legend 9 Elite. But the Tiempo Legend 9 is actually a bit lighter weight in terms of in feel, in hand feel, and also just in general, I think it is just a lighter football boot. The heel area on the Tiempo is a lot more accommodating. So as you can see here, from a width perspective, or I'll put them together, I like the heel area actually on the Copa a little bit more, but I do think that the Tiempo Legend 9 is an excellent heel area. Now, in terms of leather quality, it's hard to argue with the Tiempo Legend 9 in terms of having a full leather upper, and the Copa doesn't, but I actually think the Copa has a softer upper in general. So given that they're about the same construction, what am I going to pick? Let's do attributes, and then I'll come to a final conclusion. Heel area, I like the Copa. Actually, no, that's not true. I like the Tiempo better. The Copa just slips and slides. They haven't nailed that heel area yet. The Tiempo heel, the upper of the Copa, and the sole plate of the Tiempo. So that's 2-1. So I'll say barely Tiempo Legend 9. Objectively, it's probably a little bit better of a football boot. It's just a little bit different, whereas the Copa sort of blends that synthetic and leather. Conclusive answer, Tiempo Legend 9. Thoughts on the Furon version 8? You got to wait for the review. It's coming out soon. Kelvin is in the middle of editing it, I think, as we speak. So don't worry, it's coming soon. How did you get to work with Ultra and with football boots in general? I'll answer that backwards because you'll get the story. So boots in general, I started a YouTube channel. It was all about sort of my journey going from team to team, being a professional footballer, training, off season, team moves, game analysis, all that stuff. And actually, while I was in Australia in my first year of doing the channel, I've always been obsessed with football boots. I think I was always like, I want to go to the store and try all of them on. I just want to sit there and see what they feel like. And that, oddly enough, didn't really hit me until I started I did a review. I think my first review was I think it was a blackout pair of Phantom Ultras. It was either that or the GT1 in black and pink. I'll try to find it and put it up on screen, like whatever the first boot review I ever did was. And the comments that I got and the responses on Instagram and stuff were like, whoa, dude, like you really love this stuff. Like clearly this is a thing for you. And the video got a lot more views than the normal kind of average. At that time I was getting like, 400 or 500 views max after like a month. Because the channel was really young at that point. But then those videos did a lot better than what I was kind of expecting. And so I was like, I think there's something there. And also, I absolutely love talking about football boots. And so it sort of just morphed into like, okay, what pairs could I get my hands on for a really low price or for free? And then, or could I buy them and sell them right afterwards? And like how that all happened. And then, of course, as the business started to be built and monetization started to become part of the equation and money started flowing in, I was able to actually afford the boots to then, get them in and then do the whole, and then the system sort of funds itself, I guess, if you could say. And basically what happened is by the time that I landed in Australia in December of 23, right after my Flower City season for the last time, I was here early. My wife hadn't gotten here yet. I got our rental place and, got sorted the car and was trialing for NPL clubs and had a couple contract offers and whatever. And at the time, I think I had eclipsed 100,000 Instagram followers. I think I was over 40,000 or maybe like just under 40K on YouTube. And like I was, relatively well known. Like I think I was on my way to becoming now one of the probably top 3 boot reviewers in the world, I would say. And I think I'm one of one in terms of who I am as a boot reviewer, right? Like I'm the only guy who's done pro or who's played pro for an extended period of time or any time at all. And I am the only one who does proper play tests on stuff and actually tests things over time, 1 month reviews, etc. So that's not to say that other reviewers are worse than me, because that's absolutely not the case. It's simply just that's my twist on it, right? So I come from a playing background, and therefore it's very easy for me to go out and actually show at a relatively high level what the boots look like and perform like. So I've just got that different outlook on it, which is not better or worse. It's just what it is. That's my unique thing. So that at that point, I basically just showed up to Ultra one day because I wanted to. It was the first time that I'd ever been to Ultra, and I had heard about it obviously through media and everything. I'd been following the account forever, and I was shopping around and just looking around the store, just being like, oh my God, this place is like a mecca for football boots. It's amazing. It's all this stuff. And I'm walking around and kind of chatting shit with one of the guys that works there, who's now a friend of mine. And he was like, you're Noah Cavanaugh, right? Like I've seen you're on Instagram and whatever. And he's like, what are you doing here in Melbourne? And I was like, oh, I live here now. Like I moved officially because my missus is Aussie, and, we're super excited for this next phase of life and next journey. And he goes, oh, right, that's sick. And I just thought to myself, I was like, dude, like you've been waiting to work with someone like this, like a company like this forever. Why not just ask? And so I said to the guy, I said, hey, dude, do you guys have a media marketing director, whatever? He was like, yeah, give me one sec. So he jumps up to the back of the room, and one of the guys that I'm now collabing with, who's the marketing director at Ultra, came downstairs and we chatted for a few minutes and totally hit it off. And he was like, oh my God, this would be perfect to have you here. And, we can figure out what that looks like. And so it literally, like, I say that story to illustrate two things. One is great, hard work paying off. Amazing. And number two, it's like, you got to just shoot your shot. Like, they could have said, oh, we already have a team, we already do our media thing. But they were super excited to have a personality like me who could present. And that's sort of what I do, right? I'm sort of a professional, not only a professional reviewer and whatever, but I'm also quite good at presenting. I can articulate well, and I can do my research really quick and straight away get information out that's understandable to people. That's like one of the things that I do really well. And so they were immediately excited about it. And so that's how the Ultra thing happened, and also how the boots in general thing happened. It just sort of morphed into something that I had already been obsessed with for most of my life. Better for wide feet, Ultra 5 Ultimate or Predator Elite 24. Forefoot, Ultra. Midfoot, Predator. But neither are amazing for wide feet. I would highly recommend other boots for, if you have properly wide feet, I would probably go for something like a Tequila, potentially a Morelia 2. The Predator is better for wide feet in general, but those are probably not really wide, like traditionally wide-footed football boots. So just maybe look at a couple other things. Like an Icon 2 is really great for wide feet. Something to consider. Will you ever test fake football boots? Not if I can help it. I think that is a waste of time for me. I think it's fun to do fake versus real, but I just don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. I just don't care. And it would probably do really well on views, and it would probably be, the next news story or whatever on, I don't know what dumbass website would report that, but it's so stupid. And for me, I'm a nerd. I'm a tech nerd. I love looking at the construction of a football boot, analyzing all the different pieces and parts. So why would I spend my time trying to prove a fake was a fake? Like, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And there are a lot of, I'm sure, really good fakes out there. I prefer to deal with the real thing, because you're not going to want to buy, as a viewer of this channel, you're probably not coming to the Noah Cavanaugh channel being like, oh, I'm so interested in the best fake boot I can find. Fuck off. No. Most of you, in fact, I would argue 100% of you, are looking for the boot that's actually going to fit your foot the best, and you're looking for a legit football boot made by a reputable brand, whether that's any of the, big 6'5", whatever it is now. Whether you're looking for something like an Adler boot, which is a lot smaller of a brand, whether you're a female athlete looking for the IDA boots like Sokito, whatever it is, right? Nike, Adidas, Puma, Mizuno, Asics, all that stuff. I'm looking for legitimate football boots, and I really don't care about the fake football boot world, other than maybe trying to avoid it. And we'll probably talk about fake football boots at some point in the next however many episodes, but it's not something that I will go after on a regular basis if I can help it. So I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1 of the Boot Report. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and I'll see you guys in the next video.